Two Generations Together, partnering with colleges and employers. We've got some great folks doing some work at the national and local level to talk with us today. And I'm excited for you to talk with them and share your experiences and learn from them as well. All right. So today we'll hear from Elise Rosenblum from the Employment Pathways Project, from Antoinette Montgomery from AVANCE-Houston, and from Marvin Hogan, who's the Executive Director at Friends of Children of Mississippi. The topic, fairly straightforward. I will give you guys a brief overview for anyone who hasn't heard it before of what NHSA's work has been this year around the Two Generations Together project. If you're signed up for this, I would be surprised if you haven't heard of it, but we'll touch on that real quick. Then we'll hear about engaging employers in the two-generation approach, partnerships and practice from two local programs, and then finally just some updates on how you can continue to stay involved in this work. The Center for Policy Data and Research is the location within NHSA where we are focused on the two-generation effort, specifically on supporting programs and national policies that focus on two-generation. Of course, the entire Head Start model, and hence most of our work is related to supporting children and families together. And if you have gone to our website in the past 2 days, I'll do a quick plug. We have now launched the new National Head Start Association website. And so you can see all of these materials and resources much more nicely organized and formatted and accessible, we hope. And I'll show you exactly what that looks like at the end if we've got a minute left over. But we really take as our mission in the Center for Policy Data and Research to curate knowledge about Head Start, to support all of you as program leaders and to share your experience and wisdom, to generate new analyses and reflections on program and policy priorities, and to strengthen dialogue and collaboration between practitioners and researchers. If you haven't seen it, the Two Generations Together report was released this January. You may, if you were there, have heard from some of the people who will be speaking with us today. If you are interested, you're welcome to watch that full institute on our YouTube page, an entire day of great content. You can also go there to watch the previous webinars from this series if you've missed one, or to share this one if you'd like to later. And then the final component of our two-generation work is a listserv, a learning network to really support programs talking to one another about what they're trying, what they'd like to try, what barriers or questions you run into. And we hope that that'll be a supportive peer network even beyond the time frame of the webinar series. So to get us started today, as we often do, we'd like to ask you just a few questions to help us understand who's in the audience, what are your pressing questions, what are your experiences. I used to be an elementary school teacher, so I share with those of you who've worked in the classroom this idea of asking about prior knowledge. And so to get us started, we will ask you, what has your experience been working with employers? Talking today about partnerships with employers and with colleges, but asking first about your employer experiences or relationships. Give everyone a second to respond to that. Oh, and you can choose multiple answers if you'd like to. So if you both have had positive experiences and you have employers on your board, you can choose both. All right. Well, go ahead and close that. And so some interesting findings. You should be able to see it on your screen now. Nobody's had universally positive experiences and nobody's had universally negative experiences. The latter, I suppose, is good, and the first maybe to be expected. But we've got about half of you saying that you've had mixed experiences. You're moderately engaged with your business communities or your employers. And then close to half saying you're working on developing new or additional relationships. So hopefully really in that camp we'll have some resources and strategies to talk about over the course of the webinar. And then finally, more than 10% of you include employers on your board or policy council. So that's great. So in addition to building those relationships, that may be something the rest of you want to think about as one strategy or component of moving forward. So now a question with slightly different answer choices. What have your experiences been working with colleges? Do you have partnerships with most of the colleges in your area? I'm including their community colleges, universities. You'd like to form partnerships. Your staff attend those colleges. Your staff teach at those community colleges or colleges. And you offer services on site. And I could have added your parents attending those colleges, but it was limited to 5 answer choices. All right. Take another few seconds to make any final choices. You can choose more than one. All right. And you should now see that on your screen. So pretty dramatic. Almost 90% of you have partnerships established with colleges, which can be a great platform when you're talking about how to support your parents. If you've already got those relationships, that can be a great place to get started. And 3/4 of you saying that your staff are currently attending those colleges, which can also be a bit of leverage potentially, depending on how your relationships have gone in the past. As well as a handful of you who would like to form partnerships. Looks like basically everyone who isn't already doing it would like to, so that's great. And then the small numbers as well, teaching or partnering directly. All right, so our final question before we get started with the main part of our webinar, just a quick question about your service area. What kind of community are you in? Really recognizing that your experiences might be different and your needs might be different based on what's accessible to you. All right, and so you should see that. Interesting, fairly few suburban, but about 1/3 of you are rural, 1/3 are urban, and a little more than 1/3 are a mix of those community types. So thanks for sharing, and we'll be sure to think about that as we talk today. All right. So with that, I'm excited to turn you over to Elise Rosenblum, who has taken on a variety of roles related to employment and to supporting young employees and young parents and others. And I will let her share with you a few of her efforts in this area. Elise?
Great. Thanks, Emily. Hi, everybody. Happy to be here with you today. So as Emily said, my name is Elise Rosenblum, and I'm the Executive Director of the Employment Pathways Project. The Employment Pathways Project is focused on helping employers create pathways into work for what we call opportunity youth, low-income young people who are not firmly connected either to work or education. And we do a lot of work focusing on getting employers to think a little bit differently about talent and who's talented and where they find their talent, and then also helping them think through what are the best practices that they can employ, almost always in partnership with nonprofits or educational organizations, to build pathways that reconnect these young people. So the next slide would be great, Emily. So these employment pathways, as I said, build bridges between young adults and employers. And as you can see here, there are about 6 million of these young people in the country, and there are about 4 million open jobs. Now, of those 6 million young people, about 1.5 million of those young adults are young parents, and they have about 2 million children, many of whom I'm sure are in your programs. So when we think about employment pathways, we're really thinking about strategies to help the parents of your children connect to work and become economically self-sufficient and fulfilled, and ideally over time potentially re-engage in their education as well. Okay, the next slide. Great. So employment pathways take a lot of different forms. They can be anything from something that's fairly light touch from the employer's perspective, like creating a job shadowing opportunity, or doing a one-day workshop on career exploration. They can include things like mentoring, internships, apprenticeships, a range of innovative training and hiring practices that really help these young adults who have not firmly attached to the labor market get a foot in the door and really get on a path to not just a job, but a job with career path options. For most of your Head Start, you can actually, well, that's fine. You can stay on this slide. So for Head Start programs, engaging employers and creating pathways can help you achieve many of the Head Start performance program standards, including those pertaining to family and community partnerships. For example, during family goal setting process, you may be able to identify that a parent needs continuing education or other employment training services. And through your employer engagement efforts, you can identify and collaborate with employers and likely community-based organizations, including community colleges or other nonprofits, to help support those parents in meeting those goals. It's really important for me to stress that there's no single one-size-fits-all effective employment pathways approach. They vary dramatically depending on the particular community that you're working in, depending on the particular needs of the young adults that you're thinking about, and of course depending on the needs and interests of the employers that you're working with. What we strongly recommend as folks are thinking about creating employment pathways is that you spend some time really understanding what are the needs and assets of the various players around the table. So you all would likely have the opportunity to really understand the needs of your parents, what kinds of supports they need, what kind of opportunities they need, and then potentially build relationships with some of the employers who are on your boards or who are in your communities to help create some of these on-ramps for young adults. I would imagine for many of your programs you would want to do this work in close partnership with a community college partner or potentially even with a high school partner. Many of the programs that we see that are successful work with young people that are either have dropped out of high school or are very highly at risk of dropping out of high school. And these programs can be absolutely transformational for those young people and their children if they have children. So just to dig in a little bit and tell you about a couple of examples that are up here. I'm not going to talk about all three of these, but I'll talk about a program that the Gap has. So you guys are all probably familiar with Gap Inc. They own Gap and Old Navy and Athleta and Banana Republic. They have a really interesting program that they run in partnership with nonprofits around the country. It's called This Way Ahead, and it's really a program to help those young parents develop skills and networks and experience so that they can transition into the workplace. They have a nonprofit partner that provides work-based training for the young people. Gap has helped to develop that curriculum, and Gap employees volunteer their time to deliver the curriculum. And the program is set up so that the young people do a paid internship in the couple of months leading up to the holiday season. Then the internship ends, but because it's the busy holiday season, a very high percentage of those young people get hired into jobs with one of the Gap affiliated stores. And what Gap has seen over time is that people who they hire through the This Way Ahead program have twice the retention rate of the average person they hire into retail. So there's a real business benefit for Gap. There's a tremendous benefit, obviously, for those young people that are getting the skills and networks and opportunities to get into the workplace. And for the community, it's a benefit because you've got young adults who have been disconnected from work and unproductive, transitioning so that they can support themselves and support their families, and ideally, as I said before, get back on track with their education. So if you think about this from the perspective of a Head Start provider, there's a bunch of different ways I think that you all could be involved. You could think about partnering with employers who might provide internships to the parents in your program. This might happen through relationships, as I said, with your board members, or you may have people in the program who themselves are in the workplace and are, with companies that could be interested in providing internships to some of your parents. You can refer parents to third-party training programs, including community colleges and nonprofits. So, for example, Year Up is a national nonprofit workforce training program that works with 16 to 24-year-olds or 18 to 24-year-olds who have a high school degree but not yet a college degree, and they provide 6 months of pretty intensive skill training, both on professional skills as well as technical skills that help young adults get ready for internships in financial service, tech, and some quality assurance kinds of jobs. In the second half of their Year Up program, young people do a 6-month internship with a large company, and at the end of that program, about 85% of the Year Up graduates transition to full-time employment or full-time education, earning at least $30,000 a year or more. So pretty transformational for the parents, obviously really transformational for their children as well. You might also think about referring your parents to various programs that are running at community colleges in your area. It looks like you all already partner pretty significantly with community colleges. So big opportunity there to really think through how you're referring parents into training programs that the community colleges have going, and for you all together with the community college to explore partnerships with employers that can provide the third leg of that stool and really create the opportunity for some work-based learning experiences for the young people, which we know are pretty essential in helping them transition to work, particularly work that has career opportunities.
Elise, we just get a question over the interface. Are these typically paid internships? For most of these young adults, the internships have to be stipended in some way. So yes, they're not necessarily being paid. The technicalities of it vary. In some situations, they're literally being paid like a wage, a training wage. In other models, they're receiving an educational stipend during their internship. But it's a great question. And I would say for the population of young adults that we're talking about, and probably for many of the parents of children that you serve, there has to be some compensation connected to the internship. Otherwise, it just doesn't work. I think the important thing to help parents think about is really taking the slightly longer view. If the internship is compensated at a level that they can manage, even if it's less than they might be making in some other opportunities, if it can get them to a place where they can dramatically increase the income that's coming into their family, it's worth that 2-month, 3-month, 6-month period. And we see a lot of young people who are in a training program earning that stipended internship and working another job in order to be able to make it all work. And many of these programs understand that they're serving young people that have children, and so they're also thinking about what are the early childhood education and child care
accommodations that need to be made for the children of the parents. So there's a really natural synergy there, I think. You can go to the next slide. I can't see this. I can't see the question, so I'm guessing you're going to tell me when there's a question. Is that correct?
Yes, that was the only one coming up.
Okay, good. So I think the big question, is how do you bring employers to the table? And you can go ahead and go to the next slide. It's really critical, for most employers to work with them at any kind of significant level. You've got to be thinking about the business benefits. Employers are in the business of running their business. And so they're thinking about any kind of partnership opportunity through the lens of, how's this going to help me do a better job running my business and ultimately help the bottom line. And I think the good news is, employers have been thinking about early childhood education through this lens for many, many years. Actually, they've been thinking about early childhood education, I would say, through this lens longer than they've been thinking about employment pathways this way. So you all, in some ways, have a real jump start. Employers know that if their people in the workplace don't have a safe place for their children to be, those workers are going to be less productive, there's going to be higher turnover, and they're going to be less happy, engaged employees. So you want to be thinking about those kind of business benefits. And when you're thinking about employment pathways, you're really helping an employer with a talent strategy, as well as helping them think about, how do we get more productive, more engaged, happier employees. So you just want to, kind of try to take yourself out of your context and put yourself into someone else's context as you're thinking about how to build these partnerships. I think a lot of times we go to employers and we think of them as just someone who can write a check to help with a particular campaign we're working on, but really there's so much more that employers can do. And if you can really identify, what is the crossover in the Venn diagram between what you're trying to do and what they're trying to do, you can get tremendous engagement and tremendous value out of those employer partnerships. So the next slide. And then kind of the flip side in terms of thinking about the business benefit, employers are going to be thinking about you and your partners and what you're going to be able to bring to the table. And you bring a lot of things to the table. So you just want to think about it, how you can articulate what you have to offer, what your expertise is, and those of the partners that you're engaging along together with the employers. Whether it's, access to talent or more productive talent or, young people who are going to stay in their community because their children are, grounded and connected through your program. So you just want to be thinking, I think, broadly about those issues. You can go to the next slide. And then these are just some basic best practices that we've identified over the years for cross-sector collaboration. These may be obvious to you, but I always share them because they are really, really important. And there can often be a disconnect between the private sector and the education and nonprofit sector partners. So you really want to spend a little bit of time as you're developing partnerships to think about and set some baseline kind of rules of engagement for your partnership. So having consistent open communication is really, really important. Having some shared goals, and this is where you really want to be thinking about where is the win-win for you and for your community college or nonprofit partner and for your employer partner. Having really clear expectations around roles and responsibilities. I think another thing that's not up here is being mindful of time frames for turnaround. Employers tend to move things really quickly, and we often see nonprofits losing their employers, losing engagement with employers when they're involved in a many month-long strategic planning process, and the employers just don't have the bandwidth to kind of stick in meeting after meeting after meeting to figure all that out. So you want to do some of that work and then go to them with, decision points and opportunities for input, but not expect that they're going to necessarily wade through all of that process. And some of these other things I think are pretty straightforward. So the next slide. So the last thing I want to share with you is just a really exciting new resource that is out in the field that can help you with the employer engagement work that you want to do. Earlier this year, we launched a new campaign called Grads of Life. It's a PSA campaign that's being run by the Ad Council. It's running nationally, and it's a multimedia campaign, so it's on TV, out of home, print, radio, and digital. It is a campaign targeting the employer public, and the purpose of it is to get them to think differently about talent and then to help them understand what they can do to build pathways for new talent to come into their workplace. To complement the PSA campaign, we've built a website. It's at gradsoflife.org. I encourage you to go check it out. You can see the PSA there at the top of the page. And then it has a large number of tools to help employers take action. It has articulation of the business case for employers. It kind of pulls out those business benefits to help them understand what they can do. It has toolkits. It has a partner directory, so an employer can put in their zip code and find out who they can work with in their community. And then it has a whole bunch of case studies of things that are working effectively for other employers around the country. So the last thing I would say is just to encourage you all, if you are already working with employers effectively, we would love to hear about what you're doing. We would love to get that information up on the Grads of Life platform. And we would love to get you and other partners into the partner directory. So there's an opportunity to kind of promote what you're doing that's working well so that other employers can emulate it. And I think that's my last slide. Maybe I have a thank you slide. Thank you. If you all want to get in touch with me, here's my contact information. You can also reach out to info@gradsoflife.org. And I'm happy to take questions now or at the end, and I'll hand this over to my colleagues.
Great. Thank you so much, Elise. That was wonderful. We haven't had any more questions come in during your presentation, but I'm sure folks will have some at the end. And so as we move forward, I will turn us to Antoinette from AVANCE.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Antoinette Montgomery with AVANCE-Houston. I'm in Houston, Texas area, and today I want to talk to you about how AVANCE has been able to develop partnerships with local colleges in the area. Next slide. So to start with, AVANCE's mission is unlocking America's potential by strengthening families in at-risk communities through effective parent education and support program. I guess about 5 years ago, we started looking really at our families and looking more so at outcomes and what the differences were with the families we were making. And so with some stakeholders, we came up with 2 priorities for the agency, one being that children are school ready and the second being that parents are self-sufficient. And so historically, we'd always thought this, but we thought more about being very intentional about how to demonstrate that children are school ready and how to demonstrate that parents are self-sufficient. Next slide. So over the years, we have worked very hard to expand our service delivery model. What you see is AVANCE's holistic model. In the middle of our wheel is the Parent and Child Program. It's the program from which AVANCE was founded. It's a 9-month parenting program, and it's a program that's designed to work with both parents and children 0 to 3. Through our work with parents, we found that they were very engaged. They were more likely than other parents in our program to just take advantage of everything that we kind of brought their way, be it new programs, opportunities, and things. But one of the things that we felt was missing was that connection really with the workplace and continuing education. And so we, in the last several years, we began to focus more closely on our adult education program as well as our workforce program. And now we've established various programs or partnerships with local colleges to help sustain both of those areas. So we have some different partnerships with Early Head Start, Adult Education, and Workforce. Next slide. So to give you some examples of what we're doing with our participants and how we work with colleges, one of the things that we decided to do was establish basically a committee of parents, staff, and our stakeholders from the community to help us build what we call a college-bound culture. We wanted parents to start thinking about college even for their babies. You know, what were their plans and what steps they needed to take. So we felt like when we did a questionnaire, we did surveys with our parents, a lot of them had the mindset that they did not really need to start thinking about college until their children got in the upper grade levels, like high school. And so our philosophy by then is really late. So we wanted to get them thinking about those things early. And not only did we want them to think about their children, we wanted them to start taking a look at themselves. Some of them were already participating in our adult literacy programs, but then others were simply in our Head Start and Early Head Start programs, and some working, some not, but had not really looked very closely at the options for continuing education. So we felt it was our responsibility to start exposing them to more. So what we did was we developed a series of programs you see listed here, and I'll talk to you briefly about them. For the last 3 years we've worked with a local college to help build our adult literacy program. And it started off where this program was a partnership directly with the local community college, and it was overseen by the Texas Education Agency. But in the last year, it was so successful, it has been transitioned over to the workforce component, and it is now considered part of a consortium, and it's part of the mayor's initiative here in town. And AVANCE is a part of that, along with AmeriCorps and other local agencies. And so we do this in partnership with the college as well. College courses, for what we found is that even if we did not have parents enrolled in the GED program, we still have many parents who completed high school and really may or may not have known the next steps to take to get connected to colleges. So we started reaching out to one local community college in particular to start doing some seminars with our families, start actually holding some special sessions where our families could go over onto the campus to talk with a career advisor, talk with one of the academic counselors about what the next steps were, and as far as enrollment and registration, as well as financial aid. So we have worked to nurture that partnership and get these parents enrolled in college courses. Then we also started a partnership with the community college where we offer Child Development Associates classes on site. And so they actually employ a couple of our staff, center administrators for the Head Start programs, who are actually qualified to teach the course. And then the same administrators actually teach out in the community as well. But the advantage to having the program on our site is that it makes it easier for both parents and employees who want to take advantage of the course on site. They don't have to go very far. And then there's also a connection between our program staff and the community college program staff. There's just a little extra care that's given when we know we're working together to get them the participants through the program. So there's a lot of communication that goes on. We recently started what we call a GOA program. It's a General Office Assistance Training Program, and it was an opportunity that we had to participate in a grant or apply jointly in a grant opportunity to offer general assistance training classes on our site. And so we did this with the local college, and they were successful. This occurred last year. We were one of the top programs in our recruitment and retainment of students, and so they decided to have the program go on again this year, and so we're currently offering this program, and it's open to parents of our program as well as parents of the community. The next one is high school to college transition. If you attended the conference, you probably heard me speak about the program that we have for teen parents. It's where we partner with the local community college, and we partner with the school district to basically work together to get the teens, these are teen parents who have children enrolled in early Head Start, to get them through graduation first and then on to college. And so we've been very successful in that, and we are working with a group of teens again this year. And most recently, we received some additional funding to start a tutoring program for high school students who are kind of borderline with their grades and need a little extra push to meet graduation. But then the end result of this program is that these same students that are in the tutoring program are then supported in their transition onto college. And so we're excited about that program. Another unique program that we did with the local college is the local college actually sent to us some students who were working in ECE, or they were students in the ECE program, and they came into our program to conduct a family literacy program with our parents of early Head Start as well as their babies. So basically they were teaching the parents how to read to the children and just encouraging that reading and literacy development. And so this program lasted for about 16 weeks, and we were very excited about that. But it was a perfect example of how both the university could benefit from having our site as like a learning lab for the students, and we could benefit as well by allowing the students to teach our parents literacy development. Next slide. So some of the things, the supports that our families get when they come to us, we want to make sure no matter what program that the family enrolls in, they have a case manager. And this case manager is assigned to them to, one, look at all of the needs of the child, but it's also the needs of the family. And part of that being the family's plan career-wise or educationally. And so each family gets, or each participant gets an individualized transition or education plan. We have FAFSA trained staff, and we also offer our classes on site, as I mentioned before. And we recently opened a training facility. We call it our workforce site, where we have several classrooms as well as a conference area. And so we're excited about that, and we're using it, and we plan to expand to offer a variety of different classes there. And then GED on the Move. This program is specifically for our parents who are in our GED program. Again, they get that same support for that transition to college. We have mentors that we have partnered with the corporations, and they send corporate volunteers into our program to work with our students. They do one-on-one kind of mentoring program. And that CPAL stands for Corporate Partners for Adult Literacy Success. Okay. And then we also expose them to college resources as well as college scholarships. Now those college scholarships, again in partnership with some of the local corporations, we've received donations. We've even received this year, we've received donations from our board members who want to see us be able to offer some level of scholarship to our participants when they are accepted to college. And then as well, we encourage our students to apply for any other scholarships that may be available to them. Next slide. So when we started our college-bound culture, again, we focused on our participants, but we also wanted it to include our employees. So here are some of the things that we've done in the past and working with colleges. We've had colleges work directly with us to develop degree plans for our employees. A lot of this work was done when the new requirements came about for Early Head Start and Head Start, but it has since moved on, and now it's even to the point where they're looking at master's level programs because many of our teachers now have achieved AA and BA degrees. We offer the Child Development Associate program as well, and that again is open to both parents and employees, and then professional development opportunities. And this is unique because more recently our colleges are now inviting us to participate in joint training opportunities. So when they're doing trainings with students, they're also inviting our employees and inviting us as an agency to be involved at free or reduced cost. So we're very happy about that. And then we have our new training facility that will be used both for participants and employees. Next slide. So levels of support that we offer. We know that being an employee working full-time and trying to achieve your education can be challenging. And so we want to do what we can to help our employees. And so we offer tuition reimbursement. We offer, let me back up. For tuition reimbursement, we give our education staff priority for our tuition reimbursement. And then we offer 3 hours of weekly leave for class, as well as professional development. So in working with our employees, we want to make sure that we develop the professional development plan jointly with them, but that we also do our part as an employer to help support their continued education. So you will see on some of our employees' plans specific objectives related to their continuing education. And then on-site CDA classes, as I mentioned before, we also work to link them to colleges. There are various scholarships that are available if they're pursuing degrees in ECE. We make sure that they're aware of that. Our HR department does a very good job by staying abreast of the different initiatives and programs that the various colleges have. We do not endorse any particular college, and we make sure that the colleges that we are speaking about are accredited. That is something that we are very mindful of. But ultimately, it's our employees and our parents' choice about where they choose to pursue their education. Pay increases. This is something that's very important because one of the struggles that we have in Head Start often, and Early Head Start as well, is that when our families do or our employees do get that higher degree, we may or may not be able to keep up with the pay incentive, and they may have a better opportunity for higher pay at a local school district. So we are trying our best to, when possible, to have a system for pay increments when employees achieve a higher level of education. Next slide. So partnering with colleges, some of the strategies that were previously mentioned for partnering with employers can also be applied to partnering with colleges. For us, one of the things that we would encourage programs to do is to identify their community needs. You want to know what the needs are for your community from an employer's perspective, as well as the colleges and your own population that you're serving. You want to be aware of the wage levels, the poverty levels, and the education levels in your area, because that's the information that you'll use when you're communicating with the different colleges. You want to be able to seek out the resource or grant development office at a university. So most universities will have an office where that's their focus, is grant development, seeking other resources from the community. That would be a good starting place. You could also connect with a various department within the college if you had a particular interest. I put here ECE, Early Childhood Education, because that's typically what we're interested in. But if you were trying to start a program, maybe you were doing something with fathers, and you wanted to start some type of technical training program. Just last year we were talking to a college about starting a welding program. So there are a number of different opportunities if you just reach out to the individual departments within a college. Okay. You want to let them know that, because you are willing to offer some classes on site, because there are times when they're looking for those satellite places. They don't want to invest money in infrastructure to start a new college, but they do want to offer a course for a particular community. So let them know if you have space available. And seek out funding opportunities or scholarship funding. That's another way. When you start looking out, looking for different resources, there are often different grants that are available for this type of work and helping our families. And then another way that you can partner with them is actually partner with the admissions department of a university or college. See if they'll come out and train your staff on what to look for in particular when working with families for the transitioning onto college, how to complete the FAFSA process. Too often we used to take for granted that our staff knew how to do this process, and they really didn't. Every year it's complex, there are changes, and so we've made it a point to make sure that they are trained. Next slide.
Thanks. And Antoinette, I just want to give you a heads up. We've got about 10 more minutes, and I want to make sure we get to Dr. Hogan, too.
Okay. I'm about done. Okay. So quickly, joint applications. We just, with joint applications, you want to just offer the space you have to provide classes. You want to offer your support in helping get students into the college setting. And then you want to seek out opportunities for funding, and you can bring those opportunities for funding to the colleges. They may not be aware of different opportunities, but if you see something, don't be shy. Bring it forth. Next slide. The in-kind. This is another opportunity that we get. When we partner with colleges, they are able to provide us in-kind. As long as it's not services or volunteer funded federally, it's okay. So we have college representatives that sit on our policy council and board. We have student interns for different social work, education. So we've had different volunteers, and then there are some other opportunities. Sometimes they do professional development training at free or reduced costs. Next slide. And then just a consideration for the National Head Start Association to probably consider a partnership or developing a relationship with the American Association of Community Colleges. We feel like maybe starting there would just help them be aware of our population and how we can potentially partner together. Next slide. So to end, I just want to end by just showing you this picture of our last year's grads. We're hoping to have a new picture this year with our new grads who have worked with us in partnership with the colleges and the local schools. And I also just want to thank you for the opportunity and let you know that if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Antoinette. And I really love how what you've said today highlights what Elise was saying earlier, which is that there's no one-size-fits-all, that you really do have that menu or that spectrum of opportunities so each family can find the right fit. With that, Dr. Hogan, are you with us?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Just be sure and lean into your phone.
I'm here.
There you go. All right. Go ahead.
We're excited about being a part of participating in this project. What you see on the slide is our Tentative Work Ownership Project, where we assisted individuals, parents, mostly females, in improving and bettering themselves in their educational as well as their job skills, whatever. And we were able to work on life skills. Self-esteem was one of our primary focus in the beginning of the program, and you see there is a young lady, Ms. Tanner, who started out and now has her own child care center. Last year, her average income was $68,000, so we are proud of that after being unemployed for so many years. We try to work with the local agencies and businesses and employers in the area within a 45-mile radius, trying to find out from them what type of employee are they looking for, what information do they need on the employee, the background, previous work experience or whatever, and then we try to get the employees to understand, prospective employees, is how to first seek out those agencies within their own locale, and that is to teach them how to go into a prospective employer and present themselves. So we call it sell themselves, and when we first said that, people got a different idea about what I was talking about, so they had to change that around, you know, because we wasn't saying sell yourself to anybody, because ladies got offended about that, so I changed the wording. But our training program is designed to really work with the people, and as I previously said quickly, self-esteem is our first 6 weeks, and once we get past the 6 weeks, we know where people are, because we found out that people were so down on themselves, and they had really a low perspective in terms of what life really would provide. So this is what we worked on that continuously. Then we designed the training, and we provide temporary transportation to employees. It should be 6 months rather than 2 years, but we stay with the employee 2 years after they complete the training to assist them in any area that they may need, just to be there. We don't try to crowd them out. We don't try to get on their back about anything, but we are there to assist them, and we changed a few years back about saying help rather than assist. We don't use the word help in this agency. We said assist, and because you have to start making the first step yourself, and that's the way it goes. We are very proud, the next one, we are proud that the job training program has been providing early childhood education, phlebotomy, technical assistant, carpentry, brick mason, cement finish, tile, and that number has changed from what you see there as 203. 91% of the participants that we have trained have either gone back to school and are in college or have completed their education from GED all the way up to their CDA and 2 years of college, the AA, as well as starting their own business. And they also start a saving program. We have an IDA program that persons participate in the IDA program once they get into employment, and this can assist them in 4 areas. And the number one area that people suggested, because we're in the rural Mississippi Delta, we're now going to expand in June into 13 other counties, is the number one concern was purchase an automobile, because the lady said to me, we can't get to work if we don't have transportation. So that's why we start focusing on let them be able to purchase a car. We are very happy about the success that we've obtained. We are seeking out further assistance from others, and we have now on our waiting list 827 persons trying to get in the program, but I just don't have the resources to provide services to them at this time. But I'm optimistic that it's going to come forward, and we are looking forward to making this a success in Mississippi, and even I've introduced it to Region 4.
Wonderful. And so just a quick question. I know we've only got a few minutes left, but I wanted to ask you, for the folks on the phone who are thinking about doing this, what are the messages that you found most effective when talking to those employers and when going out into the community to build those relationships? Did I lose you?
Were you talking to me or the group?
I was. I was asking you.
Me?
Yeah, you talked about doing your 45-mile radius survey of the employers. What do you say? How do you approach them?
Same way I heard someone else made a statement. We try to approach them from the standpoint of how we would benefit them, of what services we could render to them that would be beneficial to their service delivery, and also how they would be contributing something to the local community because they were in the area, same area. So I didn't have a big problem with this, with companies like Nissan and others. I didn't have a big issue because they already knew about the agency, and we also had made contact with someone inside the agency, so we knew what we were approaching and we know how to approach it. And then the other side of it, I took one of the former employees of the company with me.
Great. All right. So for those of you on the line, I would encourage you to type in any questions you have. We've had some great panelists today with a lot of experience. If you have questions that haven't been answered, type them in the box now. I'm going to go over just a couple future events for you to look forward to, and then I'll read out your questions for them. And so while you do that, I will just remind you that we do have 3 more webinars on two-generation work coming up. The next one will be in a few weeks, focused on data and evaluation, also with some AVANCE staff and another of our programs. We'll have one coming up in May, focused on mental health, relationships, and social capital. And then our final webinar will be on asset building. And of course, we know that even though we're talking about these components separately, just as you heard from AVANCE and from Friends of Children, all of those components go hand in hand when we're designing a program. You can also email me about joining our Two-Gen Learning Network and be in touch with us over Twitter. I'm not seeing any immediate questions. Maybe we've overloaded you with information for the afternoon. But do those of you, the presenters who are on the line, do you have questions for one another?
May I make a statement, Miss Emily?
Sure.
I would like to suggest to the persons that's listening that one of the things I've learned, I call it lessons learned, is make sure that you know about how much is being spent on people that are unemployed. So you can give those companies, whoever you're approaching, some idea of what you're trying to eliminate. We're trying to break this cycle of poverty. And so that's the only way we're going to be able to do that, is we able to convince them, because it took us about a year to get some of the persons on board with us, but we learned from that experience to have some idea about what is being spent locally or statewide on unemployment.
Thank you. We did get a question about accessing the slides later. Yes, if you email me, I can send you a set. Another question for Antoinette asks, Vontaze talked about how they had a program renewed because of its top recruitment and retention. What do you think were the most successful approaches to recruitment and retention?
I really believe in our case it was, for one, we really practice a door-to-door kind of recruitment out in the community, and we make sure that the facilitators that we have are very personable and engaging, and for us, we believe that's the key. The classes were very engaging. We try to make the connection to the participants on the need or the benefit. What is the outcome? If you stay connected to this class and finish and get your certificate, what is the benefit? And so one of the things that made me think of, Dr. Hogan just mentioned, make sure you know how much is being spent on unemployment. We wanted to make sure that the participants of the class realized from day one the potential income they could secure once they achieve their certificate. So we made sure that we did a community-based study on what the wages are for clerical workers in various settings, because clerical workers' salaries vary depending on their settings. So we share that information, and we think that's a key part of it, because they really did have something to shoot for, as well as just staying connected. We had, when they missed days, we followed up with them to try to see where they were. If it's an issue of child care, we tried to help them eliminate any barriers to keep them from coming to the class.
Thank you so much. All right, I do see one hand from Patricia Lawson. Patricia, I'm unmuting you if you want to ask your question.
I don't even, can you hear me?
Yep.
I'm sorry, I think I just hit that by accident, so I don't even.
All right, well, thank you. All right, and so with that, any final words from our presenters today?
Just great to hear all the good work that is going on in Houston and Mississippi, and I think there's tons of opportunity for many of you on the phone to do similar kinds of things, and we're happy to be a resource if you have additional questions at Grads of Life.
All right, well, thank you all so much for joining us. We will have this recording available on YouTube later on, and I will just for 1 second show you our brand new website and how you can go to nhsa.org. This is the cover of our new website. We're really excited. If you go to the Knowledge Center, the Center for Policy, Data, and Research is where you'll find a lot of the work that you've seen from me before. If you go to our current initiatives, you can also find our Two Generations Together project, which includes the report itself, as well as you can see our programs here that we've heard from today, as well as reporting from the Institute and the webinar series. So we encourage you to explore that and to stay in touch. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.